Hello and welcome to Brimwood Farm, and this beautiful November day. It's actually very, very mild. So I have been out in the garden doing a little bit of inspecting and working out what needs to be cut back. And I suddenly realised my heucheras have got a little bit overgrown. So today we're going to talk about how to prune and how to propagate beautiful heuchera plants. So heucheras make really, really great garden plants, and as long as you don't live in the extreme cold temperatures, they will actually offer you colour all year round. They mostly use for their foliage. You can buy tons of different varieties with dark purple, lime green, just ordinary green foliage, all striated different colours. They're really, really good, but they also have little flower stalks in early spring, so April, May sort of time, which also brings some additional colour to the garden. So here is one that I grew from seed. You can actually grow them from seed. This is a few years old, so they do take a while to get going. So I've got this beautiful dark foliage. It's got this crinkled leaf on it, which is very, very pretty, as you can see. And then it's got a slightly different colour on the underside. Very, very nice garden plant. And it's clump forming, so you can see it's grown into a little mound next to this pulmonaria. I've got a few more specimens down here. These were a cheapie buy. I think they had been left to go to rot in a garden centre. They were like 10p each, and I got 3 of them. So you can see again, they've got this green variegated foliage, and there's 1, 2, 3. And I do need to get a lot more of these beautiful plants because they make great colour, especially in the autumn and the spring when there's not a vast amount in the beds. Now, the tendency though is for them to grow after a couple of years, to grow into this mound shape. And so instead of having your leaves close to the ground, which is what you want, like this side to offer ground coverage, you get it in a mound. And what happens is the leaves are growing, if I can come in here, on the end of a stalk. So let me try and show you what I mean. So here is the crown of the leaves. This is where the new leaves are coming. And here is a long stem that goes all the way back to the ground down here. Now preferably what you want is like this one, where they are growing from the soil. So all we're going to do is cut it. So we're going to propagate it by cutting off this top stem, taking care of some of the leaves, and so reducing this back to the ground, where we'll have new leaves coming out from the ground in the spring. But we don't need to throw these away because these will make new plants. So let me get my pair of succotaurs and see if I can do this one-handed. So what you want to do, I'm going to stand on the end of those leaves. You want to trace your stem, and my stem is down here, and you can see here there is a bud. So where my finger is, there is a bud of new leaves coming out. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut just above that, and we'll pull it away. We can, if it's got all these leaves cut up. Right. So you can see now how much I've cut off. All of that, and there's still quite a sizable stem on here, you can see coming up. But it's got this new growth here, and then what will happen is it will have new growth coming out of these places too. We might also, now we can see it, you can also see this one, so we might also take off this one. So we've considerably reduced that mound. We've left some fresh leaves come in, we've left some fresh shoots coming up. And now what we've got are 2 quite sizable offcuts. So what we'll do now is we're going to take them to the greenhouse, we'll strip some of these leaves back, and we will plant them. Right, so here we are down in the greenhouse, and I actually ended up taking one of those, the green ones as well, because you can see here quite clearly there's quite a bit of stem on it, but it has got new shoots coming out, so it looks rather good. And actually right here you can see a couple of little buds, which had I left it on the plant, these would have turned into new little shoots. So we've got this one, we've got those 2 big purple ones that I took, and although there's a lot of leaf, we'll probably only get 1 plant out of each because you need a little bit of stem. And then also, I was a bad, forgetful gardener, and I took some cuttings yesterday from my friends, and I left them in a bag without water for 24 hours. So what I've done is I've just thrown them in a pot of water. They may well still take. They are similar to this purple one that I've got, but you can see from the leaf here, it's a variegated leaf. So it's kind of a mix between the green one and the purple one. The green striations on this purple leaf. So it is quite limp, but it may well still take. So we'll give it a go. So we've got 3 of those. So we've got 4 in all. Now, in the same way, when you take any cuttings, it's all about trying to keep this alive while it roots. So you want to keep these leaves alive as long as it takes to make some roots, and then it can start feeding itself. So, as the general rule goes, you want to take off excess leaves because you don't want tons of transpiration going on, which is going to basically dry this plant out, because this is still living. Even though we've cut it off, all of these leaves are still living, still breathing, still transpiring and losing water. But now there are no roots to bring up that water. So you want to really, really reduce how many leaves are on this plant. And you can see here, this looks drastically different now from what it was. I may even just take this one off as well. It's because it's got this tiny little leaf in here. 2 leaves, that'll probably keep it going. Now again, this is not the best time of year to do this. You would normally want to do it in the spring, probably when the warm weather is going to start encouraging growth and root growth. As I said at the beginning, it's November. It's fairly cold still, fairly warm still though. And so I'm going to keep them in a greenhouse, see how they go, and they probably will start to root before the cold really, really sets in. Now, depending where the world you're in, if it's November and you've got frosts already and it's really, really cold, you might want to leave this until the spring. If you're worried about your heucheras outside in the flower beds, you can dig the whole thing up, put them in a pot, put them into your greenhouse, and then you can propagate them in the spring when it's warming up. So I've turned that big cutting into this. You don't need to put any root powder on, I found. And then all you literally need to do is just plunge it into some soil. Now this is multi-purpose compost. Just plunge it in. We have a new plant. Keep this watered. As I say, don't let the frost and stuff get to it. I'll keep it in the greenhouse. And then if I feel like the temperatures are going to get really, really cold, and I know it's not even attempted to root at all yet, I may bring it into the conservatory, which is attached to the house, so it gets a bit of extra warmth. I may even bring them into the kitchen just to root. However, you need to remember, once they are rooted, you can't just plunge them straight outside because the cold will kill them, so you need to acclimatise them. So if you do root them on a greenhouse, on a windowsill in the winter, make sure you put them out gradually. Don't put them outside at all, but if you put them into greenhouse, choose a mild day and start to acclimatise them as you put them out. And for several days, put them out into your greenhouse and keep bringing them back into the house at night, just so the roots and the leaves aren't suddenly shocked by that horrible temperature, and then you'll lose your cutting. But that is how easy it's done. So let's just do this one as well. Where have I put my secateurs? You can see this is the bigger one. There's a lot of leaves on here. But again, we'll just cut around the stem because we don't want any on the bottom of the stem, because that's going to be plunged into the soil, and we don't want rotting leaves in the soil, which will then hinder the growth of roots and allow infection to get into the plant. And it's quite nice doing it this time of year because it cleans the beds up as well, ready for winter. This one has a lot of new leaves. But as I say, it would have been lovely to leave it in place with all this fresh growth. But what happens is the stems just grow up and up and up, and then you end up with a heuchera that's not actually ground cover at all. And has gone very leggy, and what happens is this stem is very bare down the bottom, and then you get all the leaf at the top, which is not what you want. This has got a ton of leaf on. So what I may have to do over the coming weeks, as these leaves continue to grow and breathe and get bigger, I may have to cut some of them off as well, because there won't be enough root growth, root capacity to feed all of that. So again, just make a hole, dip it in, and then we will keep them watered. Now, as for these, I will do exactly the same thing. You can revitalise them. Obviously, all these leaves have gone. So, as an example, I will take off all of the really, really limp leaves. Silly me for not looking after it. I shoved it in my bag and completely forgot. Then probably this leaf as well. But you can see I've left a couple of leaves. So they're, you know, they are wilting, but they're not dead or frazzled. So that'll probably be enough. And then these haven't got quite as much root or stem, but I'll still plunge them at least 1 centimetre in and see how they go. And so there we have it, 6 new heuchera plants. Now heucheras are really, really hardy, and that stem holds a lot of moisture too, so that extends the amount of time they can be without roots and gives them an extra chance of actually rooting. As I said, it's probably better to do it in spring when the warmth is naturally stimulating root growth for these plants, and if it gets really, really cold, I will bring them into the house just so they can sort of get established and make a few roots. But I'll just be keeping these moist and keeping an eye on them. If there's any limping, I'll be spraying them too. Obviously, we're down in the greenhouse. You can see the perils of keeping a greenhouse next to a chicken coop because that window is filthy. So fingers crossed that most or all of these survive, because they are actually going to be used for the pond restoration project up at the farm, where we're going to be planting ornamentals and native plants around that pond to kind of sit it into the landscape and offer attraction for insects and for us to look at as well all year round. Hit the thumbs up button if you've liked the video, hit subscribe so you don't miss any future updates. If you're on Facebook, come across and join Brimwood Farm's community group, and I will see you again soon. Bye.